What's going on, guys? Jay here, and welcome to another Souls Remastered PvP video. This one featuring my newest build and probably favorite of all time, the Blighted Mind is what I'm calling it. Now, this is a dexterity, intelligence, dark magic PvP build, and once again, in between Dark Souls 1 and the remastered version, I think this is probably the funnest thing I've ever played on. Now, this is something that is meant to be quick on its feet while utilizing lower weights and lower weighted weapons that, even though they're light on the load, they pack an absolute punch through proper decision making in choosing weapons that scale well and just upgrade well overall through going down proper pathways. For this video, I'll be featuring two of those things. I might cover more in future episodes, but I'll probably name a few later on as we go along. So before we get into all that, let's talk about our soul level and our stats. You can go up to 115 meta by upping your vitality to 40 and your dexterity to 40. I feel like that complements everything that we're running really well, and you'll be able to upgrade your armor if you do so, being that your endurance is going to go up. So level 100 with this build is a good time, and even with the 35 vitality, it's completely manageable and it works well even against bigger builds who have those great swords. So with that being said, let's talk a little bit more about vitality. So being that, unlike my last video, this is something that you'll be using outside of the arena. The last one I did was arena only. So you'll be invading, which means you could run into gankers. You can run into situations to where you're going to need vitality to have your back. And it has your back when you're in the middle of melee engagements especially. Not so much when you're on the move spell casting, because with this build you're going to have access to the high level spell casting, but you want to have diversity. So vitality is adding to that by backing you in your approach to melee. Next up, we have attunement. So upon character creation, you're going to go down the sorcerer route for this build. So that way you get the 15 off the get-go, you chuck one more point in, and you have 4 casting slots. Now this is good because one of these spells in the build takes up 2 slots, leaving you with 2 spells left over to put in the other 2 empties. Next up after that, we have 31 endurance, also important for engagement because you want moves. It's like a game of chess and checkers. It's like the more endurance you have, the more moves you could make. So you could use that towards melee, dodging. If you're meleeing, you need to back out of a situation because you made a mistake. Endurance is giving you that barrier forgiveness. So make sure in PvP, in my opinion, so level 100 to 115, generally speaking, I think 30 should be that reliable minimum. But we have 31 because it works with all this stuff in helping us keep our light roll, I can't speak today, look fashionable, and it is just, again, enough we need for engaging as a whole. Next up, we have 11 strength, and the reason for this is because I wanted to challenge myself in finding outstanding weapons that can either be utilized with 11 strength one-handed, or weapons that could be two-handed, work well with the speed of the build, and still dish out crazy damage. Now through this, it gives me the opportunity to take leftover points and allocate them in other parts of the build. Luckily, I was able to find things that work well with this. 30 dexterity and 40 intelligence. Now I chose to put my 40 on the intelligence in this scenario. With this build, you'll be running index combo weapons like this weapon here, or the Moonlight Butterfly Horn, which is in all the way through, or dexterity weapons like the Balderside Sword, which you can enchant, or the Quelaag Fury Sword, which again, I'll touch on more weapons in other videos, but those are some mentions of things I've used with this build and that I run with this build, but these are my favorite too. So with that, the last thing I want to say about intelligence is high level casting. So not only is the 40 intelligence good for what I'm running in my scenario, you want to have 40 with this build for the DPS, because the Crystallization Catalyst in the Crown of Dusk, it's buffing your magic further, so you may as well go all in and make the most out of it with the restriction of allocation that you're given. Now let's get into the weapons. So the Enchanted Painting Guardian Sword, I slept on this, and I kind of wonder if some of you guys out there who are watching this may have too. As scaling in intelligence, I'm happy I upgraded this one. This was one I really wanted to make work with something, and when I saw the S, I'm like, oh my gosh. But not only that, you keep bleed damage on the weapon, which is just absolutely crazy. And I love that it has the dull and predictable R1, because you can throw someone off and try and get them to set up to parry on you, which I feel like this R1, when people spam it, that's what they're setting themselves up for. So I'll swipe once or twice, and then check out the rest of the moveset. Check out just the amount of work that you can do on somebody with bleed buildup and just DPS in general, being that the scaling damage is absolutely insane. So I'll bait the parry habit, I like to call it, because usually when somebody tries to parry you, it's like a trigger finger. They just can't stop. And by chaining the R2s, or even going from an R2 to a R1 and throwing their parry timing off, they put themselves in a situation to where they bleed out, or they're about to. If they're about to bleed out, they get nervous, some people back off, they lose management of the fight because they're too focused on seeing that bar right at the edge. So this is a awesome weapon. Do not sleep on it. I can't wait to roll the footage after this intro is done, just to show you how great it is. Complementing that, working around 11 strength, and by the way, that's 1.5 pounds on that Guardian Sword, crazy insane. But the Moonlight Butterfly Horn, working around 11 strength, again, you know, taking time out to do this was a challenge, but this is a great weapon to complement the Enchanted Guardian Sword because it has short reach. Now, this has long reach, and even though this takes 12 strength to use one-handed, by two-handing this will give us access to utilizing it in PvP, which that's all you need. You do not need a shield to run this because the reach is absolutely outstanding. The damage is middle of the pack, but what I like about this weapon is it's a good early game, mid game, or closer. You could use it for chip damage, or you could use it to close out a fight on somebody who has low health. Let's say you get off a sweet cast. A great one, just something else you shouldn't sleep on, and the moveset is outstanding. Next up, we have the Tin Crystallization Catalyst, the only catalyst I think you should run with this build, and I say that because even though your casts are being halved, you're going all in on this. 40 intelligence, run that buff to magic through the Crystallization Catalyst, cutting your cast in half but buffing your sorcery, and then Crown of Dusk, which is going to buff it further. Go all in, because I promise you, the spells we run with this, when you see the damage output, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, you don't need multiple casts. And these two things help make that possible. So, the Crown of Dusk, even though it's buffing your magic, it's making you weaker to magic by a significant amount, but if you're good at dodging and timing, you won't even, you'll forget that you were weak to magic. But in a scenario that you get hit, you're backed by the Dingy Robe, which offers you a whooping 79.9, may as well say 80 magic defense, at the cost of 3 weight. I mean, look at how lightweight we've been already. And then next up, we have the Giant's Gauntlet. So this is where we get heavy. We're going to get our poise from here. Now, this build you want to run with a 9.7 Gauntlet that is going to give you poise in combination with your leggings and the ring to put you at 70 flat. So the way I did this was, I did the math to where we come out to 15.2. So your gauntlets and your legs have to be 15.2, and the poise needs to be enough to, when combined with the ring, which is going to give you the 40, everything all together. So 21 plus the 9, that's 30, plus the 40, that's 70. So you want 30 from your gauntlets and your legs while still staying under your weight limit, which is basically judged out through the 31 endurance. That's why I have 31 endurance. I was looking for the word there. So following the Wolf's Ring, we have Havel's Ring, which is making it possible for us to quick roll with all this on. Next up, if we toggle our status, we'll see that we have the 3 spells, like I mentioned before. Cut down by the Tin Crystallization Catalyst, which it does not matter, trust me when I say it. Taking the Catalyst off, we could see that Pursuers is initially 3. It gets knocked down the 1, Dark Bead was initially 6, we get 3 on that. 10 down the 5 on the Homing Crystal Soulmass. Trust me when I say, when you see the footage ran, you'll believe me when it just comes down to diversity. You know, having the long range, having the short range weapon, and the magic to go either before or after. So you can follow up with melee, or start with melee and then finish with magic. I usually start with pursuers and then go from there, and then once I run out of pursuers, I will use the Dark Bead for the element of surprise, which is the one-shot dream. And then you have homing Crystal Mass, which I use once I'm out of pursuers, and I'll let that go out, and then I'll follow it and engage with close range melee. So with all that being said, this is enough talking. Let's run a series of clips. I've been Giaquinto, and you are watching the Blighted Mine PvP build. I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you.